How are you doing? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Welcome to the Alcohol Mastery Podcast, session 13. All right, so I just want to start off today. Welcome to the podcast, first of all. I'll start off with a bit of housekeeping. Just to let you know that the other website, the sister website to Alcohol Mastery, has been launched there a couple of days ago. The first post, what to expect from Habits Unplugged, is up there on the website. If you haven't listened to that, then head on over to habitsunplugged.com and take a look at that. This video just basically goes through what to expect from Habits Unplugged from a point of view of the videos and the content of the videos, that kind of thing, and how often to expect videos, that kind of thing. So one of the reasons I started Habits Unplugged was because some people have a problem with associating themselves with anything to do with alcohol, in terms of subscribing to a channel or subscribing to a website, getting emails from a website which is trying to help them deal with alcohol problems. And I understand that, So I thought for those people, it would be easier to get emails from a website called Habits Unplugged, or, something along that nature. I think I'm still going to be dealing with a lot of stuff around alcohol, but I'm going to be dealing with it from the perspective of habits. If you've been listening to Alcohol Mastery for any length of time, you'll understand that I base my reasoning and my whole philosophy around the fact that drinking alcohol, the behavior of drinking alcohol, is a habit. It's something that you get into over a long time. One of the questions that I've got, actually a couple of the questions that I've got today are going to cover that, so I won't talk too much about that here. Also, from another perspective, is that if you're trying to quit drinking alcohol, my advice is to focus as much as you can away from the alcohol, away from that old behavior, to stretch the elastic band, if you like, until it snaps, until there is no connection between you and the alcohol anymore. I feel that I'm at that stage now. The only reason I'm talking about alcohol is because I'm obviously making videos and I'm reading about it every day. But from a personal perspective, as in me drinking alcohol as a behavioral thing, it just doesn't affect me anymore. I mean, I don't think about alcohol. I don't think about it as being part of my life. It's hard to imagine myself doing that anymore. It's hard to see myself with that logical frame of mind, doing that day after day after day, going out and purchasing the wine or the beer, coming home, drinking it, in whatever way, shape or form I was doing it, suffering the consequences the next day, the hangover and the brain fog, and then still trying to function. And, this, for me, when you are away from it for a long time and you hear that word functioning alcoholic, it's something which is, it doesn't seem right, that you basically you're functioning as an alcoholic, but in the other sense of your life, that's all you're doing is you're leading your life, and you're getting along with things at a very basic level, right? And the more you drink, obviously, the more basic level you've got to do these things. And the more you drink, the more you risk those basic elements of your life disappearing underneath the radar altogether, and just disintegrating, I've known people in my life who have literally lost jobs, lost businesses, lost husbands or wives. They've been even lost their children, through their alcohol, through the alcohol behavior, you know. And I'll keep coming back to the behavior rather than the alcohol, because, you know, the alcohol can do you no harm on its own outside of, you know, inside the bottle. Once it's inside the bottle, it only does you harm when it's inside of your body, right? And then it starts creating havoc. And it's this persistent and consistent consumption of alcohol, which over the years accumulates into bad habits and, you know, wrecks yourself as a person. You know, when I think about how many of my values I twisted and lost even through drinking alcohol. And again, it's only when you get perspective, once you stop drinking and you look back and you see yourself from the perspective of somebody who is just, you know, you go on to a different level. And once you see yourself, you look down at the person that you used to be before. And you see how much you had actually sunk. Now, you know, I'm not talking about this from a rock bottom level like the AA talks about it at all. I don't think you have to get to that stage. I think anyone who has got any sense about them whatsoever, you know, there are plenty of signposts on the way down that you can see, you know. I mean, we're given signposts from day one, right? From the time that you take that first drink. You know, imagine yourself, whatever it was that you first drank, that first glass of wine, or maybe you took a quick sip of a cap full of whiskey out of your father's whiskey bottle, or you took a beer. No matter what it is, that first taste of alcohol is not pleasant, right? Nobody starts out drinking alcohol with the mind that, that was lovely, you know, I must try that again, you know. It's always an unpleasant feeling, right? It's an unpleasant taste. Now that is the first signpost that you're doing something wrong, right? The next signpost is if you continue and you get the drunken feeling, and, you know, the room starts spinning around and you get the feelings of nausea because your body is trying to eliminate the toxin that you've put into it, you know. Your body doesn't see this as a recreation. It sees this as an emergency. So your body is trying to get rid of this, and it's giving you all the signposts that say, don't do this again, you know. So that's another signpost to stop you from doing it, from, you know, to say to you, you know, use your God-given, or whatever it is, intelligence to not do this again. You know, and then you've got the hangover, the next day, the feelings of roughness and stuff, you know. This is another sign, you know. You know, and these are given to you over and over and over again throughout your life, until eventually the signposts become that big neon lit signposts that you can't ignore them anymore, you know. They're coming from all directions, you know, and they're coming from with all intensities and purposes. So, you know, to actually get to a place where you hit rock bottom, you know, I think very, very few people actually do that, you know. I mean, what is rock bottom at the end of the day? It's some place where you can't go any lower. And the only place that is, my friend, is when you're in a coffin. You know, that's rock bottom. That's where you can't go any lower, because there's many people who have hit so-called rock bottom, and there's many people who have gone beyond that. So, you know, rock bottom is not where people think it is. And, you know, like I say, you don't have to get there. Most people don't get there. So anyway, that's what Habits Unplugged is going to be about. It's more going to be about habits than anything else. And I'm focusing on habits because I think that, you know, once you do quit drinking, you start to unpeel the layers of your behavior, and you start to see other things and other areas of your life where you can make improvements, and you know, you can do things differently. You know, my whole life is about trying to be the best possible version of myself that I can be. From a very selfish point of view, I want to do that for myself, but also from the point of view of the people that I love around me. You know, my partner, my son especially, my granddaughter, or any other children that my son is going to have. You know, to present that best possible person that I can be to them, You know, as I say, especially to my son, to be a role model for him, to be a role model for my granddaughter. And, you know, that's important to me. But, you know, like I say, once you do get rid of the alcohol, your brain is in a much better position to deal with the other things in your life that present themselves. And things will present themselves, you know, like when you get rid of one problem, there's another problem around the corner, you know, that's always the way of life. But, you know, especially so when you start to deal with habitual behaviors in your life. So anyway, today I'm going to go onto the website and take a few questions and comments from the website. So what I'll do is I'll read the comment. I'm also going to read the first name of the person because, you know, they obviously put it onto the comment and they put this into public, so I think I can do that. If you want to leave a comment on the website, and obviously you know that if you leave a comment that your first name is going to be there underneath the comment, it's going to be there. So if you want to send me an email and you want me to ask a question for the podcast or any of the videos, then please tell me. For a start, I'll never use, if you send me an email and I use some of your email in the podcast, I'll never use it by using your name unless you've specifically said that I can do. Secondly, I'll never use an email unless I've got your express permission beforehand. So, I mean, I'll always send you an email before asking whether I can use this or not. But like I say, if you're going to put your name or your pseudonym, whatever it is, onto either the website or onto YouTube, then I'll use that. So, right, I'll start with the first one. This comes from Lucinda, and she says, "Thank you for all your videos. Thanks to watching many of your videos, I've been off the wine for almost 3 months and I plan never to go back. My husband has never been a drinker, mostly because his father was an alcoholic, but will occasionally have a beer or a glass of wine, maybe once every 3 months or so. It makes me wonder if there are people that can drink and never make it a habit. I know I'm not one of those people and I don't entertain the idea of somehow becoming a social drinker. Is it possible there is, in fact, a predisposition or a physical makeup that makes that is different between the occasional drinker and those of us who will keep increasing our intake to get the buzz? Maybe it doesn't matter. Thanks for all you do." Right. So first of all, congratulations for the 3 months off the wine. Well done to you. And the fact that you plan never to go back is a good thing. Now, you know, your husband never been much of a drinker and is only occasionally having the glass of beer or wine is a good thing. I mean, I think it's something which my partner, she refused to stop. She just said, "I'm not going to stop drinking. Whatever you do with yourself, that's your own problem, or it's your own lookout, and I'm really proud of you for stopping." This is what she said to me. But she was going to continue to have her glass of wine in the evening. And, you know, at the beginning I was sort of like, I was grateful that she was on my side and she did support me and she said that she would support me. So I was always happy about that. And it was difficult, you know, seeing the wine or the beer around, but she tried to keep it out of sight, right? So, you know, a lot of the time it's keeping things out of sight, out of mind. So having somebody there who doesn't really drink is going to be a help to you. Now, you ask if it makes you wonder if there are people that can drink and never make it a habit. Well, you know, that's what people do. Is, you know, alcohol drinking is not like, I mean, you don't just drink one and then you become addicted. And I don't believe in the habitual personality. I think some people can become habituated to drinking quicker than others. You know, they can become addicted to some things more than others, right? But it's only in it's a question of degrees. I think we're all made of the same stuff. You know, we're made to be people of habit. You know, so, and it's just the way our brain works. You know, if if you didn't form habits, then imagine getting up every day and learning how to operate the coffee machine, that you had to learn this over and over again every morning that you get up, you know. And that's basically what learning is all about. It's about you habitualizing doing certain tasks, you know, getting up in the morning, making your coffee, tying your shoelaces, driving a car, doing your job, you know, rearing your children, thinking. I mean, these are all the habitual ways of doing things. And drinking or any other drug taking is exactly the same thing, right? People don't just take one drink and become alcoholics. People don't take one snort or injection of heroin and become heroin addicts, right? They don't just take one cocaine dose and become cocaine users. You know, they don't take one sleeping pill and become sleeping pill addicts, right? Now, you know, the habitual thing means that you do something over and over again. That's how your brain recognizes a habit, and it recognizes the habitual behavior is that you're doing the same thing over and over again, right? And the closer the repetitions are, the quicker you will become addicted, right? The further away the repetitions are, like you say, once every 3 months or so, your husband is taking a drink. I mean, that's never going to become a habit because of the gap between the repetitions, right? You know, if somebody drinks once a week, it's never going to become a real habit, you know. It might be habitual in the sense that they have a drink at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, every Saturday night, right? And they have that one glass of wine or one glass of sherry, whatever it is, and that's a habitual thing, right? But it's not habitual in the sense of causing you any problems. You know, most of the people that come here to the website, most of the people that go to AA meetings or go into recovery clinics are people that their drinking problem has got out of hand, and they're looking for a solution. Now, is it possible, this is what you're saying, is it possible there is in fact a predisposition or a physical makeup that's different between the occasional drinker and those of us who keep increasing our intake to get the buzz? You know, you have to want to get the buzz in the first place, you know. I mean, if your husband drinks, you know, one glass of beer, one glass of wine every 3 months, you ain't going to get a buzz out of that, you know. I mean, what kind of a buzz are you getting out of a glass of wine? And, you know, when you're looking for the buzz, you're doing it for a reason, you know. When I started out drinking first, there is the reason I started drinking was because I wanted to be older, right? I wanted to look older. I wanted to be an adult. I was in this skinny kid's body. I mean, when I was 13, 12, I was maybe, I suppose, I'm 6'2" now, so I would have been about 5'8", 5'7". I was really thin, and my feet were the same size as they are now, which is size 12, and they're pretty big feet, you know. And I just felt like, you know, like parts of me were growing out of all proportion, and I didn't know what the hell was happening. You know, when you're a teenager, you have all these hormones going through you, and, you know, it's just, it wrecks your head, you know. So at the end of the day, you know, part of this was to try and bridge the chasm between where I was and where I wanted to be, right? I wanted to be a man. I wanted to be full grown, you know. I wanted to have the things that I saw around me with adults, and one of those things that I saw adults doing was drinking. So that was one of the reasons. But as you go through life, your reasons for drinking become different, right? So, you know, when you get older, you drink because, you know, I drank when I went out when I was older, when I was 18, 19, because everyone else went out, so you're fitting in with the crowd, you know. I used to drink because it helped me to relax in front of girls, right? You know, I could talk to girls better if I'd had a few beers on me, you know. And then you get older and you relax in the evening because you're tired and blah, blah, you know. So all the reasons the way you do this, you know, you need to understand that, you know, there is no, if you didn't have a reason for doing this, you wouldn't do it, you know. If you found that you could, if somebody had said to me, look, this is a great way of growing up, of being grown up, if I'd have got into, let's say, Taekwondo or something like that, where they taught us some of the basic tenets of Taekwondo, which were integrity, perseverance, self-control, all that kind of stuff. And somebody had said to me, well, look, drinking is not something that we do here because it takes away from your self-control. It takes away from your personal integrity, right? It reduces your ability to persevere in things, Then it's a bit of an education and you start to see things a different way. But, I didn't do that when I was a kid. I came from a family of 9. My mother was looking after all of us, and my father was out working, and, my father was a bus driver. He had a lot of different jobs, but at one stage he was a bus driver for 6 or 7 years in Dublin, and he was working double shifts. So, for a lot of the time we wouldn't see him for days on end. He'd be up in the morning at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. He'd be out the door by 5 o'clock and for the first shift, and then he wouldn't get back home until 12 o'clock at night, after the bus had finished. So there was a lot of hecticness in my family. I mean, it was a lot of love in my family. I'm not saying that there wasn't. I had a good childhood. We were poor. We lived in some rough areas in Dublin, but I've no complaints about that from either my mother or my father. They both did a great job. But at the end of the day, you can't be in two places at once. And left to their own devices, any child is going to try and seek out solutions to the problems that they see in front of them. A child is a natural scientist. They will experiment and they will try different things. Does this work? Right, that doesn't work, then I'll try this. Boys especially are natural daredevils. They'll jump off walls and run around trying to hit things with sticks and shit like that. And I think I started smoking when I was 7. I had my first cigarette when I was 7 with my mate. Weren't obviously addicted to it then, but every so often we'd steal a cigarette from somebody and hide around in the cornfields at the back of the house, setting the cigarettes on fire, and a couple of times we set the cornfield on fire as well. But oh God, when you think about stuff that you did, I think you understand it from a much better perspective when you have children of your own, or when you understand how children operate, and you see just that real pure innocence of a child, of a 7-year-old, or even a 12-year-old, a 12-year-old teenager thinks they know everything, but you understand it from an adult's perspective that they don't get anything. It's naivety personified. It's just complete innocence. But what I'm saying is that, when you look at this from the perspective of using alcohol as a tool, as a means to an end, and then when you find somebody in their adulthood who drinks once every 3 months or so, the likelihood of them becoming an habitual drinker and drinking for the buzz is very slim, right? I mean, for you, for anyone who drinks for the buzz, drinks to get out of their heads, to relax or whatever the reason behind it is, these people obviously haven't got that, and you've got it because you are not an occasional drinker, right? You don't moderate. I've said before, moderation only works for people who moderate their drinking, who moderate it as a matter of course. They don't have to force moderation onto themselves, And I do believe that there are some people who moderate and can moderate, but these people are also capable of going back to heavy drinking that they did before. As I said to you earlier on, from my perspective, this whole journey is about me trying to be the best possible version of myself, right? To try and teach other people how to be the best possible versions of themselves, right? And I'm only learning how to do this. I'm learning as I'm going along. But that's how life works, right? And if you drink alcohol, then it takes away from that aim at the end of the day. It takes away from that goal, because every time you drink alcohol, there is an opportunity cost, right? There is a price to pay for it. And the price to pay starts out in your body, right? Now, even if you are an occasional drinker and you drink to whatever it is your reason for drinking, but you don't drink hardly anything. You drink 1 or 2 drinks every week or every month or every 3 months in your case, in your husband's case. It's not going to do your body any damage, right? Physically, your body is well capable of handling a drink. Your body can handle a drink in an hour. It's the alcohol is gone. It's done and dusted. Your liver has got rid of it. And although when the alcohol does come in, the emergency bells go off, but your body is well capable of handling that level of alcohol. But there is also another level where the alcohol gets into your brain and it starts to interfere with that. And I think that still has a consequence, however minute. If you don't drink very often, as I say, the consequences of that are going to be a lot slimmer. But I've noticed for myself just the difference between how I feel physically, how I feel mentally, and the outward signs of that improvement, that mental improvement especially, in my life in general, and how much I've achieved since I've stopped drinking. Now, I can't put a definite figure on it. I can say, yeah, I've done 10 times as much now as I did before I stopped drinking, I like to say that I've done more in the last 4 years than I did in the last 14 years. And I think there's an element of truth in that. But I've certainly done a lot more. I feel like I've achieved a lot more. And not only from that perspective, as in, achievements, if you take the last 4.5 years and you can see where I started and where I am now, right? It's from a memory perspective, that 4.5 years seems like time is stretched out, like I've had more time. And one of the fears that I always used to have when I was younger, I remember one of my father's aunties having a conversation with my dad, and she was saying that as you get older, time speeds up, and the years just fly by, and that filled me with dread when I was young. So I thought, God, if that's how does that work for a start? And you in a young mind, you conjure up all sorts of horrific imaginations about your future and how your future is going to pan out and stuff. But I thought, well, this is how my life is playing out. But when I was drinking, that kind of thing was coming true, because when you do drink, one drinking session melds into the next drinking session, and it just all seems the same. And when everything seems the same, if you do the same job day in and day out, right? Let's say one of the worst jobs that I ever did in my life was working for a company called Philips. They were making all sorts of different machinery and household gadgets, and we were on an assembly line making tumble dryers. And my job on this tumble dryer assembly line, this machine would come around, and it was just a, what would you call it? An assembly line. It's like something like you see, when the bags come out at the airport, something like that. I can't remember the name for it offhand. But anyway, the machine would come around, and my job was to put a button on it. And that was it. It was just one button. The guy next to me put the next button on. So I had to make up these buttons and put little springs on them. And there was about 6 or 7 different components to this button that I had to put together and then slap it onto this machine. And when you do that over and over again, it just becomes so mind-numbingly boring. I used to listen to my Walkman. So I was always listening to audiobooks. At the time, I think the only audiobooks I could get were from the library, and they were audiobooks of Dickens and people like that, you know, old English authors and stuff, and Irish authors. But I can't say that I can remember any specific day that I was there. I remember having a fight in there one time with a guy around my own age, and I can't remember why. Something stupid, you know. But I can't remember anything. I mean, I remember putting the button on the machine, but I can't remember specifically if that was at one time or another time. You know, it was all just one big horrible memory. And I worked there for 9 months when Sean was very young. I think he was only just born at the time, I think. But anyway, what I'm saying is that when you do the same thing over and over again, it becomes the same thing. You know, it is the same thing, and you don't have any individual memories, right? When you don't do this, when I stopped drinking, you expand yourself so much and you do so many different things in your life that you're creating so many different memories. And because you've got so many different memories, it feels like you're doing, like time is spread out. I don't know if I've explained that clearly enough, but you know, you do. Everyone's only got the same 24 hours in the day, but it's what you do with that 24 hours that count, you know. I mean, if you sleep for the whole 24 hours, then, you know, the day's gone, isn't it? You know, if you sit down watching TV for the 24 hours, then the day is gone. You can do something productive with that time, you know, like putting your time into building a business or educating yourself or spending time with your children or with your family or whatever it is. You know, there's different things that you can do. And when you're drunk, when you're drinking, you tend to go into the same thing, because drinking is a part of an habitual behavior, right? And the behavior is structured with different rituals and smaller behaviors and smaller habits, you know. So you'll tend to drink the same drink. You'll tend to drink the same drink out of the same glass. You tend to drink with the same glass in the same chair, with the same people, in the same pub, in the same room, whatever it is, right? You'll do the same things. So, you know, when you don't drink, you just don't have that. You don't have those rituals, you know. You might have other rituals, but I'm saying is it's not as compulsive as the drinking ritual, because, you know, in order to feel relaxed, you've got to be able to pull all these rituals together, and, you know, that's what makes the drinking behavior. So anyway, time just expands and expands and expands. So, you know, I'm just saying that life without alcohol for me, is the only way forward. And it's not from an abstinence point of view. You know, I like not drinking alcohol because I don't like the consequences of it. I don't like the consequences, even if I can't feel them physically. I know they're going on in the head. I know that whenever you drink a toxin like alcohol, you take any drug, that it has a side effect, right? And that side effect prevents you from doing something else that you should be doing, right? Or that you could be doing, not that you should be doing, but that you could be doing. You know, the opportunity cost is always there. So yeah, that's my take on that. I hope I answered your question, Lucinda. A bit long-winded. The next question, I'll read this in full, and then I'll go back and cover a couple of different points. It's from Bruce. It says, Kevin, you do a good job in helping the heavy drinker, in parentheses, he says alcoholic, to help stop drinking. Problem drinkers are people whose lives have become unmanageable because of their heavy alcohol intake. They've passed the point of no return of being a social drinker for many varied reasons. You must still recognize the fact that there are millions of social drinkers in the world as well. I know plenty of people who only have 1 or 2 drinks on a social occasion, perhaps weekly or monthly, annually. My mother had a couple of sherries at Christmas time every year, and she lived to be 95 years of age. This is hardly a problem drinker. You cannot group everybody into the same category. Have you read the big book from AA? There are many answers in that book to what a true alcoholic is. He cannot live without alcohol. Plus, alcoholism is a recognized disease by the American medical profession. What do you know that they don't? They are medical doctors, right? Medical doctors in all capital letters. 99% of social drinkers can stop drinking if necessary. I think you have to make that distinction to retain your credibility. People who drink 1 or 2 glasses of wine weekly / monthly are certainly not problem drinkers. Best to Bruce. Right. There's a few topics here, so I'll take them one by one. The last one that you made there, people who drink 1 or 2 glasses of wine weekly or monthly are not problem drinkers. Never said that they were. These are not people that come to this website. They're not people that go to the AA. They're not people that seek help, right? Your body is, as I said earlier to the earlier question, your body is well capable of dealing with that kind of thing, and, you're not a problem drinker. And I've never said that, The fact is that the millions of people that you talk about, you said that you must still recognize the fact that there are millions of social drinkers in this world as well. I know plenty of people who have only 1 or 2 drinks on social occasions, perhaps weekly or monthly. My mother had a couple of sherries and she lived till 95, and that's hardly being a problem drinker. Like I say, you repeated that one at the bottom, but, I'm not saying that's a problem drinker. But it's also not the fact of a social drinker. Most people look at social drinking as going out on a weekend and having a few more than 1 or 2 every week anyway. A lot of people look at social drinking like it's not social unless you're drinking. And I mean, for me, when I was social drinking, it was more the drinking than the social. And I think that is the fact with millions of people, that they might start out with the reasons for drinking or whatever, to be more sociable, right? To try and help them to be more sociable, to try and help them to overcome shyness, or to, whatever reasons people use alcohol with a definite and sometimes a definitive purpose. And there are millions of people that do that, right? So the only people who are coming to websites like this, and the only people I am ever going to be talking to, are people who are having a problem in stopping drinking, right? They're having a problem with their drinking behavior first and foremost, and they're having a problem with stopping that, right? For me, putting alcohol into your body, regardless of what you're doing it for, whether you're doing it as a social drinker, right, is besides the point. It's putting a toxin into your body, right? People who drink alcohol, they have 1 drink of alcohol every so often, right? Should be in exactly the same position, the same class of people who take heroin once in a blue moon. And there are people who do that, right? Who take a shot of heroin once a month or once every 3 months or whatever it is, and they don't become addicted because of that, right? You have to do this time and time again in order to get addicted. Now, you can argue the differences, that heroin will possibly addict you a lot quicker than alcohol, but the consequences of stopping drinking and stopping alcohol stopping heroin are completely different, right? And I'll show you those in another video. I'm not going to talk about it here. But my problem is always with trying to find an outward solution to an inside problem. Even if that is you're drinking as a quote social drinker, right? You're only drinking socially, right? Why would you even need to do that? My mother used to drink a glass of sherry at Christmas time, and she looked uncomfortable. She'd sip at the thing, right? And the only reason she was doing it was because she felt she needed to do it, right? Because of the occasion, right? Once a year at Christmas, right? She'd drink it, or she'd drink it maybe, at somebody's birthday when, there was somebody else doing the same thing. And that was all she used to drink. She never liked drinking, and you could call her whatever, a social drinker, but she wasn't. She was a drinker who was forced to do it through convention. And that was basically it, She was putting up with adult peer pressure, if you like, or there was nobody physically forcing her to drink alcohol. That's basically what she was doing. So, I'm talking about alcohol from my perspective. Is I would never want my child to start out drinking alcohol now, right? If I could help them not do it. Just the same as I wouldn't want them to start out taking heroin or smoking pot or smoking cigarettes or taking angel dust or, you know, eating magic mushrooms. I don't want them to do that because I know the physical effects. Because, you know, once you start to look at this thing, if you start to see the benefits of using alcohol or any other drug as a tool, then it can start to fuck up your life, right? And that's where I'm at. You know, this is 35 years of drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, taking all sorts of drugs, and, you know, it didn't do me any good. You know what I mean? I might have felt that it got me through a moment in time, you know, got me through a problem which had to be dealt with there and then. But, you know, the problem is never dealt with, you know, as every drinker or every drug taker knows. So as you rightly say, problem drinkers are people whose lives have become unmanageable because of their heavy alcohol intake, right? I'm not saying, you say also they've passed the point of no return of being a social drinker, right, for many varied reasons. You know, I agree with you with that. I don't think people can go back to moderating. I don't think it's very difficult for people to go back, because once they do go back to that thing, to that space, they have to moderate for life, and it's a conscious thing that you have to do. You know, it's a consistent fight. Whereas if you stop, that's it. There's no more battle. You know, our definitions of problem drinker are based upon how we view problem drinking in society. You would never say problem heroin user, right? You would never say problem cocaine user, right? It's just not something that we would talk about. So why are we talking about problem drinker, right? And I know alcohol is embedded into our society. It's going to take a long time before people finally figure out what they're doing to themselves. But if you're trying to get the best possible use out of your life and the best possible to the best possible place in your life, then anything that you do to yourself, anything that you put into your mouth, deliberately put into your body, which is going to have an adverse effect on either yourself physically or mentally, or, you know, with your interactions with the world, how you control those interactions, how you think, whatever it is. This is detrimental to that idea of being the best possible version of yourself, right? That's where I'm trying to go. You know, it's all right saying, well, you know, some people don't want to go through life being the best possible version of yourself. They want to be able to experiment and try different things. And that's fair enough. I'm not an advocate of stopping alcohol or stopping any drug, you know. I think if somebody wants to take a drug, let them take it, you know, as long as I don't have to take it, you know. And as I said, if I had my time over again with my son, I would do everything in my power to educate him against taking any drugs. And as I said in the last comment, you know, maybe if I was younger and I'd have been taken to something like Taekwondo or some other discipline like that, where I was taught things like self-control and perseverance, and you know, the fact that you had to have integrity in yourself, that, you know, I might have seen drug taking as something which was against that integrity, which was against that ability to persevere, right, and to push myself and to have self-control, all that kind of stuff. So now you go on to say that, so, you know, you say you cannot group everyone in the same category. I'm not doing that at all. Then you say, have I read the big book of AA? I've read parts of it, right? I've read parts of it, and basically it stopped me from reading the rest, because I knew, well, you know, there's no point in me reading anymore, because from what I've read, I just didn't agree with it. You know, there are, as you say, there are many answers in the book about what a true alcoholic really is. He cannot live without alcohol, right? Well, that's wrong for a start, right? You know, anyone can live without alcohol. You live without alcohol before you started drinking, and you can live without alcohol after you stop drinking. You know, what's the difference between a person who stops on their own, a person who quits via AA or rational recovery or any other help through what I'm doing here, you know, telling people this is what you do, right? Or going to a recovery center and paying thousands and thousands of dollars. What is the difference? What happens at one place that doesn't happen in another place? The only difference is in the influence, is in the education that's going in. Or, you know, like in the case of the recovery clinics, you've got the medical advice. But the thing which is the same in all of them is that the individual has to stop putting the stuff into their mouths, right? You know, no matter where you go, if you go to the AA or if you go to a recovery clinic, you can walk out. You know, so it's a personal choice in order for you to stay. It's a personal choice for you to go there in the first place. I know some people are forced to go there, but that's not the people I'm talking about, right? Because if you're forced to do something, it's generally not going to work out good for you in the long run, you know. A lot of people might get something out of it even if they're forced to do it, but the majority of people won't. So from the start, people choose to go there. And ultimately, it is the individual's choice to stop putting the stuff into your body, right? And anyone who goes to the AA or anyone who goes to a recovery clinic and comes out the other end not drinking has made that choice to stop putting the stuff into their bodies. And they realize that they can live without alcohol, right? You're saying that they cannot live without alcohol. They can. Right? And alcoholism, as you say, right, is not a medical, it's not a recognized disease, right? There's many medical people in the medical profession who know that it's not a disease, that it's not possible to be a disease, right? You know, the fact is that when people talk about a real alcoholic or a true alcoholic, like what you're talking about, the AA model makes sort of this distinction, right? Sort of a qualitative distinction between a moderate drinker, right? Somebody who can take it or leave it, between a certain type of hard drinker, right? And this is a person who might have the habit badly enough that leads them to a physical or even a mental impairment, right? They may even die as a result of their drinking, right? But that's not to be confused with the real alcoholic, right? Real in quotes, right? Or the real in capital letters, as defined by the AA, right? Because if he finds himself with a strong enough reason, right? Whether that's his health is suffering, whether he's fallen in love with somebody, whether he has discovered that his wife is leaving him because of his alcohol, because there's a change in his environment. His doctor is saying to him, look, you've got to quit now, because if you don't quit, you're going to die, right? He will not be able to quit, right? The real alcoholic is sort of impervious to all sorts of these warnings or changes, and he's never going to be able to quit. He's not going to be able to cut down or anything like that, right? He's just doing what he's doing, and basically that's it. Now, on the other side of that, you've also got the AA, which is teaching people that the alcoholic sufferer has got to think of himself or herself as being completely out of control, right? Completely unable to control their drinking, right? Completely unable to function as a normal person forever, not only now, but once you stop drinking as well, you know, and for the rest of your life, that they're going to be a human being which is apart from everybody else, right? You know, people might be normal in every other aspect of their lives when they're sober, but as soon as one drop of alcohol touches their mouths, they're completely different, right? Now, this concept of the real alcoholic that AA insists on is just a difficult one to argue against, right? It's a tautology, right? Now, a tautology is a kind of self-reinforcing pretense at some significant truth, right? No matter what that truth is. It's basically a logical argument, right? Which has got a truth no matter what the interpretation, right? So with every possible interpretation, there's a truth to be found in it. So if you take two people, right, two drinkers, right, who drink the same amount of drinking, from an AA point of view, it's possible that one might be an open quote real or a pure or whatever it is, alcoholic, right? And the other person may be merely a hard drinker, right? Is somebody who is a heavy drinker, right? And there's no way, just by looking at these two people, how to judge where they're going to end up, right? Or what's going to happen to them. You know, if one person succeeds in eventually controlling his drinking, like I did, right? improving their lives, you know, I've just gone from strength to strength to strength, right? Then that person is clearly not a real alcoholic. He is a hard drinker, right? Now, the other person goes on to completely destroy their lives, right? And they end up in AA suffering and being told that they're an alcoholic and they just can't do this. And eventually they completely destroy themselves. Then they are obviously the real alcoholic, right? And there's no way of telling these two people apart until you actually see the end result, right? Until you find what's going to happen to them in the future. So the concept of the real alcoholic cannot help us to predict what is going to happen in the future. And by the same token, it becomes impossible to disprove, since anybody who appears to have the attributes of the real alcoholic, but who does in fact control his drinking, can be said to be, by definition, a real alcoholic to begin with, right? Do you understand what I'm saying here? So, you know, you can look at a person like me and you can say, well, you're obviously not a real alcoholic because you managed to come out of it the other end. And that's what I've had with so many different comments on the website, you know. And I never said I was an alcoholic, right? I don't believe in that kind of stuff. I think if you want to call yourself an alcoholic before you stop drinking, then fair enough, do that, you know. But I don't believe anybody, no matter where they are on the continuum of from being a social drinker to being a full-blown alcoholic where you just drink every day, I don't think there's anybody there that cannot stop, right? At the end of the day, the person at the furthest end, the most severest end of this scale, where they are drinking every day and they're drinking a lot every day, they're drinking severely, they do need medical attention, right? And I'm not saying that this is not a medical problem. It is, right? But it doesn't mean to say that everybody who quits drinking has to go through this, that everybody who wants to quit drinking has got to go through the AA. You know, if you want to look on this disease theory that you've got, or that the American medical profession or whatever, you know, is talking about, just go into Google and type in "alcohol is not a disease," and you'll come up with paper after paper after paper of people, of doctors, of people in the medical profession who are all caps medical doctors that I'm not, right? I never said that I was a medical doctor, right? I'm a person who's trying to help people who are getting away from the habit of drinking, right? I'm not saying that I can help people with the medical consequences of drinking. You know, anyone who goes into a hospital, who needs to go into a hospital with because they've been drinking alcohol, is there because of the consequences, not of the stopping drinking, but because they've been the accumulation of all the alcohol that they've been drinking all their lives, right? The best analogy that I can tell you about this, right, that I can say, is the analogy of drinking alcohol to speed in a car, right? You know, there's always the old saying which says that it's not the speed that kills you, it's a sudden stop. Well, you know, that's bullshit, because if you're going up 5 miles an hour and you have a sudden stop in your car, you're not going to die, right? You're going to have a little bump and that's it, right? If you're going 120 miles an hour and you have a sudden stop, there's no chance for you, right? You're dead. Now, this is the same thing, right? I remember years ago talking to a farmer in a pub in Milltown Malbay in the west of Ireland, in a place in Clare, County Clare, and this old guy, it was the place called the Willie Clancy Week, so it's a week-long festival where lots of these little tiny pubs open up that you wouldn't have thought were there before. But this old guy said to me, we were talking about different things, and we got around to talking about drinking and driving, and he said, how can I be done for the same thing of driving home on my tractor at 10 miles an hour? He says, I'm not going to kill anyone. The only person I'm going to kill is myself. You know, and you know, there was some truth in that. You know, I'm not saying that there was an excuse for him getting up onto the tractor, but his point was that they were. This is what he always did. You know, from when he was young, they always went to the pub and they drove home on the tractor or the bicycle or whatever it was. You know, and that his way of life was changing. You know, it's a fact that has happened for generations and generations and generations, right, since time began. You know, things change, and the old have to get used to new ways of doing things, right? So anyway, the point is that the actual stopping doesn't really make a difference, right? It's the speed that you were going before you stopped, before the sudden stop in the crash, right? So it's the same thing with drinking. If you have a stop, if you stop drinking alcohol and you've been drinking every day, all day for weeks on end, then you have a much higher need for medical advice than a person who drinks occasionally and has decided that it's not for them and they want to stop drinking, right? Or for a person like me who did drink every day, but I knew that there was nothing going to happen to me because I always took a day or 2 or 3 days off, between drinking sessions. So I knew that, I'd be sort of gagging for a drink. I'd want to drink, but there were no physical feelings to it. So I knew that I wasn't going to. But there are some people who are going to go through some severe symptoms and side effects. And that is not because they're stopping drinking. It's because of the amount of drinking that they were doing before. It's the same as the person who has an accident. It's not the sudden stop that matters. It's the speed that they were going at before. So it's the same thing here. When they stop, it's the amount of drinking that they were doing before, which is the big takeaway from this, right? So as I said to you, take a look at any Google search that says alcohol is not a disease, and you'll come across a lot of stuff that will talk to you about outside of what the medical doctors are saying. As I said, there's so many different doctors that are disputing this now. There's so many books. I've read so many books about this that, it's just, as far as I'm concerned, as soon as you start to say this is a disease, then you give over control, and that's the one thing that I didn't like about the AA was just that you have to give over your entire control. Not only have you to admit that you're out of control, but that you never will have control. You have to give your control to a God or whatever, if you don't believe in God, you have to give it to a higher power, whatever that means, right? I don't believe in God, right? So what does that mean for me, a higher power? It's just gobbledygook. It doesn't mean a thing, it's just when you go in there and one of the steps or 2 of the steps mention alcohol and 7 of the steps mention God, and then you say to me it's not a religious organization, it's bullshit, so that's the reason why I don't go to the AA. I'm going to do a video on the AA soon because I get a lot of people asking me about the AA and what my opinions are on the AA, and I've been reading a lot about it lately, doing a lot of research, and I'll back it up by stuff that, when I'm talking about the success rates and, like I say, what I'm saying about the I think it's a religious organization, and no matter what way they try and get around that, it's built into their doctrine, So I hope that answers your question. It was a bit of a rant, but look, I'm going to end it there, and we'll do another one probably next week. I'll have another one out by Monday. I'm going to do a few more of these because I just think I pack more into a podcast than I can into a video. It just takes up a lot less of my time, and I want to put more and more of my time into the program, into the mastermind group over on Alcohol Mastery, because this is the thing where people are making an investment in their own time. So I have to put so much more of my time into that. If you have any questions at all, any comments, any suggestions for topics that you would like to see me talk about on the website, on the podcast, or in any of the videos, then you can leave a comment over on the website. You can leave a comment on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you want. Send me an email at kevin@alcoholmastery.com, and I'll do my best to either include them in the future videos or podcasts, or get back to you some other way. If you want to support Alcohol Mastery, you can do so by going over to patreon.com. It's patreon /alcohol mastery. or just go over to Patreon and type in Alcohol Mastery in the comment section. You can also, there's a link to it on the website which you can click and that'll take you to, and you can become a patron of the show for as little as a couple of dollars. You can also make a one-time donation. This is all for the free stuff, right? You know, anything that I put out on the podcasts or the videos, if you want to support that. I mean, I really want to try and make this as good as I can, you know, get a lot more, you know, increase the production values, or, you know, get some better qualified people than me to do the editing and stuff like that. So it just gives me more time to put out more quality free content. In other words, you know, if I can sort of push my time into doing that rather than doing all the background work, which is not only boring, but it's just is a time suck. It just takes so long to do this. So anyway, the more people can contribute, the better it is. I think at the moment there's probably, if I look at the audience from YouTube and the website and Facebook, there's probably about 0.5% of people that contribute towards the show. And as I say, you know, if everyone contributed a couple of dollars, or if 5% or 10% of the people contributed a couple of dollars, it would make things a whole lot better around here, and it would make the podcasts and the videos a lot more valuable. So anyway, until next time, I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. I hope you enjoyed this show. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep the alcohol out of your mouth, onwards and upwards. Take care. Bye now.